Okay, it is now 6:02. We will call the special public meeting of the Shoreline and North Shore Fire Department's Regional Fire Authority Planning Committee to order. If you could please stand and bring me the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amy, could you take roll for us, please?
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Hedlund,
Present.
Commissioner Callahan,
Present.
Commissioner Webster.
Here.
Commissioner Pratt,
Present.
Commissioner Byers,
Present.
Chief Cowan,
Here.
Legal Counsel Brian Snur,
Present.
and Board Secretary Amy Oakley.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Tim Fisher, Commissioner Tim Fisher from the Shoreline Fire Department. I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight and explain a little bit of how the agenda is going to go. Unlike usual RFA planning meetings, the public comment will follow our presentation. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The chief and the planning committee members will try to answer questions after each comment, if so warranted. If the chief or the planning committee members do not have an answer to any of the questions, they'll get back to the speaker. Right now, I'd like to introduce Chief Matt Cowan. He's got presentations for us.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a tickle in my throat. The good news is I'm only gonna speak for 3 hours. I'm gonna speak for about 20 minutes and then we'll move it over to more of the, we're gonna have a couple other speakers and then we'll have some Q&A and some public comments. Before we get started, I kind of wanted to share a little bit of me, my personal journey to where I'm standing in front of you here today. For me, it started about 40 years ago. I was playing a practice round of golf and a Cessna crashed on the hole that I was playing. And I ran up thinking, and I was just a teenager, and I ran up thinking that I could help, wanting to help, didn't know what to do. And they were, the two occupants they were in pretty bad shape. And that led to a few years later being able, when I was old enough to start volunteering. I started volunteering. I grew up on Lopez Island in the San Juans. Started volunteering because I wanted to give back. I wanted to serve. I wanted to help the community. I didn't want to be in a position where I didn't know what to do. And that stayed with me. When I graduated from college, I started part-time again and volunteering in Issaquah area. And then I ended up getting hired. And I chose the fire service and was really blessed to do so. But it was from a sense of wanting to give something back, something that I felt fulfilled with, something that I wanted to have value in. And so that served me well when I was a firefighter and I was starting to run fire calls and EMS calls and serving and all that. As my role changed and my responsibilities changed, it grew to a point where I was leading and I was supervising, and now I'm supporting my firefighters in that mission. And then as it grew to becoming an executive chief, then my role, not only in supporting my firefighters, I still feel like that one of my biggest roles as a fire chief is supporting our people and doing the great work that they do on the street level. But it was making sure that they were supported with a healthy organization and being able to stand in front of you like I am tonight and say, that your tax dollars are going as far as they can and providing the highest level of service that we can. And that's what led me to, being here and championing the Regional Fire Authority. There's different models that you can have for a regionalization. It doesn't have to be a Regional Fire Authority. We believe that that's the right model. But why do we need to go for a Regional Fire Authority? The RFA, that's the acronym. It's a consolidation. It's starting fresh. It's taking what we have existing and starting anew. It's taking 2 or more fire districts or fire departments and starting with a new fire department. If you think about it, the purpose is to ensure those higher levels of service and to have those efficiencies. An RFA, Regional Fire Authority, it's very similar to the fire districts that we have now. The North Shore and Shoreline fire departments are actually fire districts. And so for us, this was I'm going to talk about some of the benefits for a regional fire authority later too, but this was a pretty simple choice for us in what we wanted to do as far as the regionalization went. Whatever form of regionalization you choose, for me, bigger isn't always better. We need to do it with the right transparency, with the right motivation, with the right goals in mind. And for me, it's the higher level of service, ensuring that we maintain or improve on the higher level of service is the first and foremost the highest priority. If we can get some financial savings, that's great. But for me, it's level of service. What we're doing now is preparing for a ballot measure in February of 2025. Because we are starting fresh, as I mentioned, the fire authority is starting fresh. And even though North Shore and Shoreline both have fire benefit charges, because we're starting fresh, the law states that a new fire benefit charge will take us 60% of supermajority vote plus one. So that's what we're shooting for. The voters of all three cities will vote on this, and we will need that 60% plus one. One of the benefits is that in the future, if we are reauthorizing the fire benefit charge, or if there's another entity that wants to join, it'll only take a simple majority. But again, because we're starting fresh at the beginning, it'll take a super. These are some of the departments that have done a regional fire authority. Again, you don't, when you're doing regionalization, it doesn't have to follow a regional fire authority. I'm going to talk about the interlocal agreement that we have now, but there are 16 regional fire authorities that have been created in the last 17 years. A lot of them right here in King County. Believe it or not, Washington State is really late to this game. This is a big industry trend. If you go to Oregon or California, or even some of the counties around us, this has been a model for a long time. And you've seen those efficiencies that have been gained, over the many, many years. And so we're kind of late to this game. And if you think about where we were at 60 or 70 years ago, believe it or not, there were 50 fire departments around King County, 60, 70 years ago. Shoreline, for example, was King County Fire District 4. North Shore was 16, but there were 50. You would never design our system the way it is now if we had known back then. So the days of having 2 or 3 fire station fire departments, it's just not sustainable for the long term. That's one of the reasons why we looked at regionalization as a whole. It's one of the reasons why for the last couple of decades, it's been an effort that we have been undertaking. At one point, even having all 4 of the departments across North King County, Shoreline, North Shore, Bothell, and Woodinville, we were all talking about this, especially over the last 8 years, just because of those efficiencies and so forth. And, this regionalization effort is similar to other relationships. I kind of liken it to what's happened over the last couple of decades of us working together. When I say us, North Shore and Shoreline, together on a daily basis with operations, with mutual aid agreements and so forth. You can call that the dating that we did. When we started the interlocal agreement a little over 2 years ago, we started and we became engaged. So now we're looking at getting married. We're looking at cementing this relationship, forming that long-lasting relationship that will give us the sustainability for a long time. The ILA, the interlocal agreement, was a planned first step towards regional fire authority. That was the plan. So, and under the interlocal agreement, we took the first steps towards some of the consolidation efforts and some of the improvement in levels of service. This is a list of the services that are being provided. We are a full hazard fire department. We address all of these services. I'll give you a minute to take a look at it. So one of the big things one of the most significant improvements that occurred from a service level standpoint when we did the interlocal agreement, I'm going to focus on some of the benefits that we got under the interlocal agreement, was we added a peak hour aid car right down the street in Lake Forest Park. We added a peak hour aid car out of Station 57. This allowed us to improve the EMS responses in the area. And more importantly, it allowed our firefighters to see a patient put them in the back of one of our aid cars and transport them to the hospital. And we call it, it was a higher level of service, a continuity of care, faster, transport. That was a huge improvement in the levels of service. We also were able to improve the rescue operations out of this station. We've had a rescue here for a long time that hasn't been utilized to its full capabilities. And so earlier this year, we started assigning some of our technical rescue people here so that we can improve that level of service, not just for our local region, but also as a bigger region across North King County. And it's already responding on a lot of calls. It responds not only on technical rescues, but on any major call, whether it's a car wreck or a tractor mower that flips over on somebody down the street, or things like that. We've also been able to expand our fire marshal services. We've been able to take back and work on investigations, the pre-fire inspections, making our buildings safer. We also, Shoreline has a dedicated fleet and facilities division under our support services. And the fleet and the facilities were able to improve the overall functionality and the in-service capabilities of our apparatus by doing better preventive maintenance and repairs. And the same thing with our buildings. The buildings, now have people that are working on them and making sure that the repairs and the preventive maintenance are being done, keeping them in service. And one of the bigger advantages for Shoreline was the staff that we had here at North Shore, the administrative staff. All the employees in North Shore became Shoreline employees. And the big improvement for Shoreline was to have, administratively, was to have some of the admin staff that was here up in Shoreline. So we had better depth, better coverage. And so, and that was both in HR, finance, and across quite a few of the divisions. One of the big things financially, so those are the levels of service, but financially, we had savings of about $1.4 million annually. And that was mostly because there's redundancy. We eliminated the redundancy of having two fire departments, two fire chiefs, multiple deputy chiefs and so forth. We removed the redundancy there and saved quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, it was also in a year that we had a lot of cost increases and so forth a couple of years ago, but we had those savings and those were transferred into how we manage the finances and the levy rates for North Shore. We also were able to, as I mentioned, start doing the transports, the BLS transports for patients all the way to the hospital. And because we did that, we also were able to access a federal program called Ground Emergency Medical Transport, GEMT. And both of those programs help feed the money back into the fire department. Instead of going to an ambulance company that's based in a different state, we're now taking that money, from the insurance companies, and we're reinvesting that in our local services, being able to provide a higher level service and give that money and reinvest it back locally. And then finally, we were able to do some of that preventive maintenance on some of the capital projects, the facility work, the replacements, the repairs and so forth. So instead of deferring or now something that's broken and we're having to pay overtime or weekend rates or so forth, we're now trying to get caught up. It's been a challenge and it will be for the next few years, but we're getting caught up so that we're hopefully long-term spending less money and keeping our facilities in better shape. So as far as the Regional Fire Authority, we're going to build on the ILA successes with service developments, lower costs, streamline our administration, enhancing our citizen representation, and locking in service. And I'm going to talk on each one of those things. The service improvements are an RFA will provide enhanced collaboration. We will be committed to each other. We will be able to break through some of those final barriers in our cultures. We would get better efficiencies, on scenes, and we'd have long-term sustainability and vision. We would also be more flexible with our apparatus and our personnel. Right now, we have to be very cognizant of, for example, North Shore right now purchases apparatus, and so does Shoreline, but we have to be cognizant of where those apparatus are as to who owns them. And it makes it inhibits some of the more common sense approach improvements that we could make. An example of this is next year, we're supposed to get our next ladder truck in Shoreline. And one of the things that we've talked about, it's not confirmed, so don't get too excited, is potentially taking our current ladder truck and put it down here at 51 in a reserve capacity. We'd also like to, be able to move other apparatus around to cover when one rig is getting beat up and has a lot of calls or something like that, that we can make sure that we're being efficient with the use, which extends the life cycle of all of our rigs. It's just more efficient. And same with people, moving people around, especially as I mentioned already with the rescue, and we'd like to get to a point where we're staffing up the rescue that's coming in 2026 and be able to have guaranteed minimum staffing levels, things of that nature. And then it also gives us better resource pooling. We get better economies of scale. It strengthens our position when we apply for grants or for other alternative revenue sources. A good example of this is that right now, Shoreline's buying a new ladder truck and a fire engine, and North Shore's buying a new rescue. But they don't, and it's all from Pierce Manufacturing. It's all the same manufacturer, but we don't get the discounts of having multiple apparatus. We could save hundreds of thousands of dollars that way. They look at it, even though we're managed by the same department, Shoreline Fire Department, it's still two different resources. It's two different budgets. It's two different departments, two different owners. So it gives us better, long-term savings for our apparatus. As far as our revenues, this is a big one. And it's preliminary. We're still working on getting all the numbers together and all that. But all of our homeowners will see decreased overall revenues that are contributed either through their tax levy and their fire benefit charge to the fire department. All homeowners. 98% of all properties will see a decrease. And I actually need to run these numbers again because I just got some updated numbers even today, and that might improve it even more. We're also the interlocal agreement, it garnered most of the financial savings, the efficiencies, but there's still almost $200,000 out there. That helps with some of the efficiencies. The regional fire authority would also reduce our overall risk as we pool our resources together and our reserves. You don't have to have as much. And so we still have to evaluate that. And I'm not computing those right now because that takes board approval and some strategic decision-making. But those reserves could be reinvested in improving, again, levels of service or savings back to our taxpayers or a combination of both. It just really depends. An RFA will also give us the long-term sustainability and some protection from fluctuation of assessed values. Everybody knows that there's quite a bit of growth going on in Shoreline. There's a bit going on here in Kenmore. And as those fluctuations occur in our different communities, if we're all one, it averages out. So it insulates us from a little bit of those fluctuations that occur. And then finally, one of the big ones is that we, just this last year, we were able to get a Class 2 rating from the WSRB, which stands for Washington State Rating Bureau. This puts us in the top 2% of the fire departments in the state as far as performance. They look at everything in a fire department and they rate you. And we dropped to a 2, from a 3 to a 2. There's only one Class 1, and that was Seattle that just dropped last year. Puts us in the top 2%. And a regional fire authority strengthens that relationship. But again, it helps us protect that rating. When we were being rated by the WSRB, that was one of the things that they were questioning. It was like, what's that relationship look like? Are you guaranteed to be able to provide this high level of service, into the long term? So on administration, I gotta tell you, this one's exciting to me. And the board's heard this before. As a fire chief, I'd really like to not have 2 different boards. Sorry, no offense. I would like to not have 2 different boards and 2 different budgets or multiple budgets and policies and resolutions and all that. It's not super efficient. And whether it's selfish for me, I have at least 2 or 3 other positions in my administrative staff that are also affected in a similar way. We're still managing different funds and different budgets. We probably, between all of our staff, we have probably at least an FTE, a full-time employee amongst us in inefficiencies. And again, that doesn't show up on paper as far as savings, but if I have to add more people down the road to address workload, it does show up in savings. It'd be another, position. Our administrative director could manage staff without concerns about scope of work, location, etc. And our support services would be able to improve by managing fewer buckets, fewer budgets. Different projects come out of different funds right now. If there's a project here in the North Shore Fire District versus Shoreline, it comes out of different budgets. You have to do different bidding, you have to do different, management of it. And so that's again, inefficiency. And one of the last ones is the enhanced citizen involvement. Right now, the North Shore Board, they still exist. They still make sure that I'm doing my job, managing the interlocal agreement, making purchases. They have revenue, taxing authority, and so forth. But they don't have a direct input on the strategic direction of the Shoreline Fire Department. They manage those things, but under an RFA, they would have that input, that perspective, and that authority. Because our plan is to take both existing fire districts and the elected fire commissioners, both boards of 5, and put them together and create a board of 10 on the RFA governing board. This does a number of things. The first is that it gives parity between the legacy North Shore and Shoreline fire departments with 5 each, but it also ensures that there's local input and representation for the different communities. We heard that many, many times loud and clear, as that we want to make sure that we have local input, local control. And so that this would ensure for the long term that the residents of Lake Forest Park and Kenmore would have an equal opportunity for input with the residents of Shoreline. And any future changes would take the majority vote of that board. So it's not something that can be done, very easily, or, without, equal voting and representation. So, and then an RFA, I already mentioned this, it locks in the services and the long-term relationship. It's like getting married. It commits us to the long-term relationship. It'll lock in the service improvements that we received in the interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreement can be ended. And those services and those efficiencies could be lost. So this actually provides stability for the future. It allows for future improvements, building on these successes that we've had with the interlocal agreement. And as I mentioned earlier, it helps us ensure financial, the reauthorization of the fire benefit charge and that stability. And again, it'll help us maintain that WSRB rating. We will get re-rated again in a few years. And we need to make sure that we keep that class 2 rating. That provides savings to all the commercial and multifamilies especially, and homeowners too, depending on your insurance company, if they look at it or not. So, those transfer to direct savings to many of our taxpayers already. And because we are maintaining the North Shore and Shoreline fire districts, if for some reason this doesn't work, which again, I believe it will, we can drop back to our fire districts and reform those. It's not easy. And I'd rather focus on the success. When you get married, you don't focus on something bad happening, you focus on the long-term relationship, and that's what we're focusing on. We're already building off of the successes that we've had with the interlocal agreement. This will just help us cement that for the future and prepare us for some long-term sustainability. And the last point that I was going to make is that I look at, and some of the guys will have heard this before, I look at a healthy organization and the relationships as a 3-legged stool. The 3 legs of the stool are the governance, the administration, and the body. And without all 3 working together with a solid relationship and helping support the department and the organization, it's likely to fail. And so I build on those and I work on those, strenuously and make sure that that's a high priority for me. So, so instead of hearing from me, I'm gonna introduce a couple of speakers so you can hear from them too, so you can get some perspective from other people too. So I'd like to Commissioner Josh Pratt with the North Shore Fire Department to come up and say a few words, and he's also on our planning commission.
All right, good evening, and thanks for being here. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us. So I'm Josh Pratt, and Commissioner on the North Shore Board of Commissioners. I've been a citizen of Kenmore for 21 years. I was a teacher in the North Shore School District for 8, Kirkland firefighter, where I still currently serve for 19 years, where I'm in the position of EMS captain, and I've been a commissioner on this board for 5 years. So my entire adult working life has been spent in the service to this community. I've seen the changing needs of Kenmore as it's grown, and I've watched as the North Shore Fire Department work to keep pace with those changing needs. I agreed to run for this position because I recognized the outdated and siloed model of fire and EMS service in Kenmore and all of North King County, and the need for fire department consolidation. As a firefighter in a neighboring jurisdiction, I'm uniquely situated to understand those changing needs and what the fire service can and should do to address them. This board and the North Shore Fire Department had a few failed attempts at consolidation with neighbors before we were able to establish the contract for service with the Shoreline Fire Department. But the benefits of this contract are undeniable, and I'm proud to have served as the chair of the board when we established that contract with Shoreline. When we work together, instead of in our individual silos, we're stronger, safer, and we can provide a better level of service to the communities we're tasked with protecting. Just a few of the benefits achieved, and it's going to sound familiar because Chief took all of the good ones. All right.
Sorry.
It's all right. We've become a transport organization caring for patients from the emergency scene to the hospital, providing that continuity of care. Along with that continuity of care and the money that is then put into the local fire department instead of a private company, we save the citizens of Kenmore Lake Forest Park money because the fire department only charges what the insurance pays, where a private ambulance company will pursue you for the balance of those costs. We've taken significant strides towards having a fully staffed technical rescue team, including water rescue. And as a tech rescue firefighter in my younger days, I recognize the quality of training that's happening on the drill ground out here at Station 51. Some fantastic work. And I'm really excited to see the organization moving forward towards fully staffing our rescue apparatus. We have an additional peak hour staffing at Lake Forest Park Station 57. Increased staffing in the Fire Prevention Bureau, resulting in greater efficiency, safer buildings, and better service to our local businesses, citizens, and property developers. We have competent and efficient IT service that has identified several issues with legacy North Shore data storage and protection system, emergency alerting system, and facility security system, and those have been resolved. An RFA is the next logical step in this consolidation process. It will provide a platform to build on the success of the ILA and provides an opportunity for additional taxpayer savings. It will allow us to upscale and expand this project of consolidation to hopefully include other local jurisdictions in a fair and equitable way. And it will also reduce overall liability and distribute financial risk, allowing for a reduction in reserve funds, potential reduction in reserve funds that each department needs to maintain. And this potential reduction can be returned to taxpayers, or it can be reinvested in better service for the community. So thanks again for being here tonight. I look forward to your support on this ballot measure and the opportunity to improve the safety and health of our community. Thank you very much.
And this is the only time I call you this, the third leg stool of the stool. Brian Ford, our battalion chief and Legacy North Shore.
Well, going third, even more of my material's gone. So my name is Brian Ford. I'm going on year 27. I started off with North Shore and now Shoreline. Currently, I'm in the training division, so I have kind of a unique view of the benefits of the contract for service and a potential RFA moving forward. So I just want to kind of share a few things with you guys. A little more on the street level, the effects it's had on directly with our community and also with our firefighters. As of me, I was also part of the e-board for North Shore. I was also part of the blending committee, which helped combine the two departments, and then also I'm continuing on the e-board with Shoreline. one aspect we keep talking about is the BLS transport. I just want to kind of give, we keep saying that it's a good thing, and I want to kind of share what we used to do opposed to what we are able to do now and why it's such a benefit. When we were at North Shore, we had one 8-car in the district. When we would go to a call, we would show up, walk through the door, determine the level of care that was needed for our patient. If it was somebody that needed to be transported to the hospital, we would then need to call a private ambulance, which would sometimes show up pretty quick. Sometimes we'd have to wait a little bit. And then once they arrived, we would then turn the patient over to a private ambulance company, which then would continue the transport to the hospital. Be louder? Yeah. So we would then turn it over to the private ambulance. They would transport. We would have very little interaction. You know, we would come in, we would take care of the immediate need. We'd then send them off to the hospital. So now to current day where we have 5 8-cars in our department.
We're good.
Okay, we have 5 8-cars in our department, so we're able to transport. So when our people show up to a house, from the minute they walk in the door, we determine the level of care that's needed. And if it's somebody that needs to go to the hospital, we will load them up and we'll start transporting to the hospital. And the Shoreline firefighters, we will take care of that patient from the walking through the door until we hand it off to the nurse or the doctor. That gives a lot more rapport and continuity of care with our patients. But another side effect that it also has is the firefighters that are going out and interacting with these patients, they're no longer just spending a few minutes with them and then transferring them to somebody else. They are actually staying with that patient. They're kind of what they're learning from all the calls, and they're able to pull more information out, and which in turn has made us a lot more capable, quicker decision-making, and also have kind of a Rolodex of what we see on calls. Because in the old days, we would send them off. Sometimes we didn't know what the results were. We wouldn't have the follow-up that we do now. So the BLS transport has been huge. It's brought up our level of EMS from the old days. So I just kind of want to point that out. It's more on the street level of what we do. The other side, the other one thing to talk about is kind of our operational level for, fighting fires, cars, technical rescue. Everybody's touched on that already, but we kind of went from a single A school to AAA. We have a lot more resources. We have more people to draw from. We have more life experience. We have more members of our community in our fire department. And I've seen the level being in training. I didn't mention I'm the training VC for Shoreline. I've seen the level of the speed and efficiency and the knowledge rise up quite a bit in this short amount of time. So it's been very rewarding to see. I think that the cities of Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, and Kenmore should be really proud of kind of the level of service that we've become. That's it.
Okay, why did it go back to the top? So we're gonna have some question and answering and some public comments here. I'm gonna scroll down to my information. Okay, and we're gonna put the microphone here on the table. So hopefully, and Amy will tell us if people can hear it or not online.
It'd be best if you wanted to make a public comment to just come to this front row.
And we're gonna have a moderator to help us manage it.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Bruce Berneski, and thank you all for being here tonight. I'm working with the Shoreline Fire Department, and we're going to have a public comment period now. So we have the microphone here so that, because this is being recorded, both those online and in the room can be heard if someone wants to listen to the recording. So if you want to make a public comment, I'm going to call names out. Amy, have you asked for public comment online yet at this meeting? Or has anyone raised their hand?
I have 2 questions, and I was just giving the people in the room instructions on how to either they can raise their hand, they can send a chat to me, or they can email, and I'll put the email in here.
Okay.
For me.
So here's what we're going to do tonight. we're going to ask anyone, there's a few that have signed up to make public comments to come up and sit here and you have 3 minutes to make your comment, ask your questions, whatever you like it. I'll be standing off to the side. And when there's 30 seconds left, I'll just raise my hand. So you'll get a sense it's time to kind of wrap things up. To the best of the chief and planning committee members' abilities, we're going to answer the questions in real time. So when someone is done with their 3 minutes, we're going to spend some time with some give and take Q&A. And if we can't answer the questions in real time, we will get back to you with those answers, because we may not have all the answers tonight. I think that's it. And we have some folks that have already signed up. I'd like to call first Alan Coburn to join us up front. And I will start my timer.
And this would be a good time too to say, if you would like more information, we have a sign up sheet too for future mailings and so forth, and on our website too.
Hi, good evening. I'm Alan Coburn. I'm with the Shoreline Observer Communications Service. We provide the disaster emergency communications in the Emergency Operations Center at Shoreline. I'm here because we are big fans of the RFA. The reason we're big fans is we already have a great working relationship with Demco, which you all should be proud of. They're over here in Mark. And we have very complimentary services that we bring to bear. We drill with them occasionally, and anxious because time Chief Ford's arm about getting more training with them over here. It's just I should also tell you that I'm the son of a fire chief, and so I did a fair amount of firefighting in the volunteer days. And like the chief, I really want to give back, and our organization does a great deal of giving back. A lot of all volunteer FCC licensed operators, and you have similar organization here in Lake Forest Park. We have fun together. We serve you really well, and we'd like to be there for you. So thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you. For those of you, NEMCO stands for the North End Emergency Management Coalition. It's a coalition between the cities of Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, the Legacy North Shore Fire Department, and the Shoreline Fire Department. And it's a regional coalition for emergency management.
Amy, do we have a question online?
Yes, there are 2 questions so far. The first question is, the fire benefit charge data, Appendix A, in your document RFA plan was not added to the document. Can you please post? There's a note on the document stating the document would be added.
That's correct. We have not added that yet. Literally, even earlier today, I was still finalizing some of the numbers and trying to, get as much of the update as possible. However, we're in the middle of our budget development, and so I want to make sure that the data that I have is accurate. I have some information I can share tonight, but again, it's very preliminary, and we will put that up as soon as we can. I'm thinking probably in the next couple of days.
Second question. Will the cost to homeowners increase with this consolidation?
So the cost of homeowners should not increase. Well, let me back up. The equivalent levy rate, because of the cost savings that we're forecasting, will decrease. I can't guarantee that there won't be a little bit, but I believe that everybody will have, because of assessed valuation going into 2026. But as it stands now in 2025, all homeowners would see a decrease in the amount that they pay through the fire benefit charge and the fire tax levy.
Thank you. All right, let's go back to live questions. I have Dave Mayrin. Apologies if I mispronounced.
Close enough.
My name's Dave Marin. I'm a Kenmore resident, 20-year fire commissioner with North Shore Fire Department. First of all, I want to thank Josh Pratt for meeting with me last week, but we didn't find agreement. The conversation was beneficial. I was told at previous meetings that this open house would be a dialogue, because before we get 3 minutes to comment, there's really not much can be talked about in 3 minutes. I don't think this format meets that promise. I've served as the North Shore Fire Commissioner for 20 years. I believe I have a deep understanding of the fire service district budgets. I also served for 30 years in the King County Sheriff's Office, retiring with rank of captain, and I was a liaison for with the Sheriff's Office for the North King County Fire Departments. You're going to make a decision in November to put this on the ballot. You don't have a budget. You haven't told the public how much it's going to really cost. And in fact, you're telling people that they're going to have a reduction in their cost for service, when in fact, that's just not possible. Your budget's going to go up by 7 to 8% next year. Your benefit charge doesn't matter if it's commercial properties are paying more. It's going to cost the same amount of money. There's no savings there at all. You've generated almost all the savings, 99% of the savings in the contract for services model. And I compliment the board and all the people who are involved in that, because it has improved operations in the department. Today, all of the Shoreline and North Shore Fire Departments are under the same union, the same administration, same policy, the same training. It's made a difference. The 1% in savings that you haven't received is because of the overhead of the North Shore Fire Board and their oversight to make sure that the Kenmore and Lake Forest Park residents get the level of service they contracted for, that they decide how much money they're going to tax the citizens. And there's really nothing that the RFA can do that the individual board members can't do. If you want to change the factors for the benefit charge, you can do that. If you want to raise taxes to have better service, you can do that. A good example is having the aid car at Station 57. That was an improvement in service. I would also say that you have to be very careful on the projections the chief is making, because on the contract for service model, he projected that the budget for this year, 2024, would be $9 million. In fact, it's $12 million. So I would have a lot more to say, but in the format that you've given here, there's not much more I can get into, but there is no need to make an RFA. The current system's not broken, so why are you fixing something that's operating very well? And the small amount of extra effort you have to oversee the North Shore Fire Department is more than outweighed by the incentives it makes for Shoreline Fire Department to continue providing high quality service.
Does the board or the planning committee members want to address any of these questions or comments for the chief?
So I do have some slides. Actually, it's that slide. So again, this is very preliminary information. I need to stress that. We are working through the budget process as we stand now. But this is basically taking, this is an apples to apples comparison. I don't have a cursor. So what you see under the 2025 column is what the budgets are. This is a very high level look at this, at our budgets and so forth. As it stands now, the overall budget for the Shoreline is 38.4 million. This is not ALS. This is just the suppression side. And the North Shore budget is 475,000, separate from what they pay Shoreline for services, which is down below. The assessed valuation as it stands now, currently as of today, is in those next two line items that say SFD and NFD. The equivalent levy rates are what we're projecting currently for 2025 as it stands now, at $1.17.4 and $1.12.2. And then the revenues are down there that are generated by assessed valuations through the tax levy and the fire benefit charge. And then you'll see SFD contracts and NFD contracts, and you'll see money there that's outside of generated by the fire benefit charge or the tax levy. And so if you total everything up and then look at the RFA in the next column with combining all those things and the some of the notes over here with some of the savings and so forth, adding 1.2 million for capital projects, we're looking at about $1.78, almost $1.80. That is a decrease in the overall levy rate. And that's the way it is right now, apples to apples. Now, again, the budget is still being developed. So I need to stress that, but and the North Shore Board and the Shoreline Boards have not even had their first meetings based on the budget that I'm presenting. I'm presenting it tomorrow night. This is a summary, this is a synopsis of that. So what it means is that we could be saving taxpayers' money and the equivalent levy rate. The question that came up earlier was like, can I guarantee that the taxes won't go up? This is a levy rate that's based off of the current AV. And that would be a decrease. Right now, North Shore is at $1.13, so that would be about almost a little over 5 cents per 1,000 of decrease. And a bigger one for Shoreline, it's about we're at $1.27 right now, so that would be all the way down. That'd be what 17 cents. No, 20 cents. So almost 20 cents. So these are some of the things that we're working on right now. And part of this, I need to tell you, the reason why some of these savings can occur is because right now, North Shore is still catching up on a lot of the capital projects and will be for the next few years. As we get together, we can get the averages and be able to apply towards those projects in a better way. So anyway, so that's on the cost. The budget is still, like I said, still being developed. And Dave, you're right. I mean, the North Shore Board is here to oversee me and make sure that I'm managing the ILA correctly. But being part of the governing board would allow them direct input on everything in the Shoreline Fire Department as part of the governing, with equal vote and parity with the Shoreline commissioners. I hope that addresses the question.
Chief, I have a follow-up question if that's permitted.
Sure.
In order to get the reductions you're looking up there, you need to have almost $5 million in savings, $4.5 to $5 million. And I'm even on the preliminary one here, I can't see there's $4.5 or $5 million in savings that wouldn't occur under the contract for services model anyway. And then the other thing, as you mentioned earlier, is the RFA is a one-way street. Once you go into this barn, the doors closed, you cannot get out. Without the board dissolving the RFA on its own. So I just can't make your numbers work.
Well,
And there's no, you haven't provided information for me to get clarity on how you can do that.
and as I said, I will post our budgets and you can take a look at them and dissect it if you'd like. And we'll have an opportunity for future engagement. You and I have had multiple conversations, and just like you and Josh, I would say we agreed to disagree on a few things. As far as the ILA goes and the cost efficiencies, there are a lot of the efficiencies could be gained in an ILA or an RFA. Not all of them. We've already talked about some of the differences between the ILA and the RFA, but the RFA gives us some more efficiencies and gives us better sustainability long term. And the biggest thing that we've gained a lot of the operational levels of improvements and the efficiencies through the ILA, but not the administrative. And now we're going to be able to gain a lot of administrative efficiencies through the RFA that we cannot get through the ILA. So, and as far as the RFA, it can get dissolved. It's not easy. It's not easy dissolving anything, but it can be done. If for some reason it's not going to work, but however, I'm focusing on it being successful. I'm focusing on building off the successes that we have now and improving those. We don't even know some of the things that we can improve on, moving into the future in an RFA, and we're actually all one. Because right now we're still not quite there.
Thanks. We have an online question.
Land was recently bought by the fire department in Richmond Beach. How does this land fit into the plan by the fire department?
The plan for, it's online, sorry. We've identified that the area in the northwest corner of Shoreline could be better served because of some longer response times into that area by potentially building a fire station there. However, it's a similar situation that we're dealing with South Kenmore with a slightly long, I don't know why I'm looking at you, I'm sorry. It's a similar situation that we're dealing with South Kenmore too, with longer response times across the cut and into that area. And even, going north, out of here and up on the hill, there's a slightly longer response time. So we're looking at all of the response time issues and trying to look at the next 20, 30, 40 years and forecasting out what those needs are. And this property came up sooner than we, were really, thinking that we were gonna go and purchase the land, but it came up and we didn't have to use eminent domain or anything else to basically get a piece of property that was right next to an existing fire station. And we used impact fees to buy it. Shoreline has an impact fee program so that as new development comes in, they are making a payment to the fire department for the infrastructure and the resources that have been committed over decades by the citizens and residents and taxpayers of Shoreline. So those impact fees are being used to lower and to lessen the impact on our existing taxpayers. And so that's what we use to make that purchase. And we're still evaluating what that looks like. We are years, at least a few years, if not more, before we'd even look at doing something there. But it's in a similar situation that we're in with South Kenmore and North Kenmore for that.
We have one more speaker signed up, John Slomnicki.
Hello, my name is John Slomnicki. I am the operations manager for Shoreline Auxiliary Communications. Alan, our president, spoke a little bit earlier. I'm a resident of Shoreline and Richmond Beach. I remember when Chief Cowan came onto the department and introduced himself to the community. He's kept every word. He's followed through with everything that he said he'd do since he's shown up. And myself as a citizen of Shoreline and our organization fully support your process for the RFA. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any more online questions? Is there anyone who did not sign up to speak, would like to make a comment, please?
This is just a question for clarification. You talked about classifications for number 2. Oh, sorry, my name is Mike Chan. I'm a citizen Shoreline. Can you elaborate more on that? I have no clue what that means.
Sure. The WSRB, the Washington State Rating Bureau, is paid for by the insurance companies, but it's basically an evaluation of holistically of the fire department and to assess the quality of that department, which generates directly into the rates that the insurance companies charge for property insurance and so forth. And so it can generate anywhere a rate anywhere from 1 to 9 or nothing. And so it's counterintuitive. The lower the number, the better the rating, the better your department is. We were previously a class 3, and through a lot of work and a lot of collaboration, actually with our training divisions and fire marshal's office, we were able to get down to a class 2. Again, it's the top 2. We're in the top 2% of the fire departments in the entire state. There's only one class 1 fire department, and that's Seattle. And they just went to a class 1 last year, same time we got re-rated. And they come by every few years to re-rate and make sure that you're still providing that level of service. So it's a good report card on the overall health of the department and how we perform. So we were pretty excited.
That's cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any more online questions? Anyone in the room who hasn't had a chance to make a comment, would you like to comment? Do we? Yeah, please.
My name is Eric Ingraham, and I'm with Local 1760, the firefighters that work here for the Shoreline Fire Department. 2 years ago, 40 North Shore firefighters and approximately 100 Shoreline firefighters joined together to create a new family. We work exceptionally well together. We all work under a single operational plan now, so it's very efficient in what we do. We've taken 2 small technical rescue teams and make a robust technical rescue team that hopefully one day can be a regional asset to not just our community, but those around us. Shoreline firefighters have gotten the opportunity to become part of the strong water rescue program that North Shore had already set up. North Shore firefighters got to become part of a wildland firefighting program that didn't exist here in Kenmore and Lake Forest Park, as well as the North Shore firefighters were given the opportunity to move up into Shoreline and work on a tiller ladder truck, whereas the Shoreline firefighters then got the opportunity to come down to Kenmore and work on the heavy rescue. So there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of things, opportunities that as 2 different departments we did get to experience. Chief Cowan said that the firefighters are the 3rd leg of the stool. And I just want to let the community know that this 3rd leg, the union, strongly supports this RFA.
Do we want to go? Yeah. So, I'm sorry, would you like to make a comment? Yes, absolutely.
So my name is Jeannie Dunns and I live in South Kenmore, about 2 blocks from the Station 54 that was just demolished. And I'm concerned about the response times up there. And now when you say you just bought property in Richmond Beach, kind of makes me think, okay, I'm in favor of the RFA and I'm a mom of a firefighter, so it makes me worry about like who gets the most attention. Then with a bigger fire department, does Richmond Beach get the attention or does South Kenmore? We really need a fire station there.
Well, first of all, thank you for being mom of a firefighter. That's a job in itself. Actually, the regional fire authority would actually make everybody together and we'd be able to apply resources, equally throughout. Right now, if we were to build the South Kenmore fire station, that'd be a North Shore Fire Department expense solely. And just like the Richmond Beach, if we decided, we used Shoreline Fire Department impact fees to make that purchase of the property. There was no funds from the North Shore Fire Department paying for that. And it'd be the same if we were to do something here separated, but together, again, we can apply some of the reserves and the more money that we're going to be able to access more equally. I'm not saying that one will get prioritized over the other. That'll be dependent on the needs and the call volumes. The call volumes in Kenmore are a little less than the call volumes in the Richmond Beach in that pursuit area, but they're similar. About 520 calls a year in that pursuit and 650 or 680 in the Richmond Beach area. So they're not super busy, but they're similar.
But do you have the track? The problem with South Kenmore is, as you know, there's one way to get up there.
Yeah. Well, right now.
One way to drive, and that's scary.
Yeah.
And there's both a wave and.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we have really strong relationships with our neighboring fire departments as well.
Right.
So we have automatic and mutual aid agreements with all our surrounding.
But that's also concerning to me because, you're saying that you have the BLS transport and stuff like that. Most likely, if I ever had to knock on wood, I've never had to call for aid or fire. And I've lived there over 40 years. Would come from Kirkland, but I don't know, do they do their BLS transport themselves or do they have, they have very different, I'm paying for North Shore or for the RFA, but I'm getting my service from Kirkland.
You're not getting all your services from Kirkland.
Most likely.
It depends on and to your point, adding another peak hour car improves the likelihood of being able to serve you properly from this station, because if we had an aid, like, if prior to the interlocal agreement, if we had an aid call in the Lake Forest Park Kenmore area, and that aid car was out of service for that call, then it probably would pull a Kirkland. But if there's more units,
Okay.
there's more reliability, there's more, opportunity for it to be in service here.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you wouldn't get it from Kirkland, but we help Kirkland helps us, and, because we really want to make sure that we're providing the highest level of service. And if you're having a critical call, if you're having we need you and seconds count, it pulls from the closest unit regardless of borders.
Right, which I love that model. I mean, that's a great model.
I would add too, as a Kirkland firefighter, that the service you would receive would be the same. The expense that you would incur would be the same, which would be none, because it would just be whatever your insurance is.
But does your BLS transport, or does the AD, or does the ambulance transport?
Kirkland Fire Department.
Does your
ambulance transport.
Okay.
And I would add that the long-term goal would be to ideally have Kirkland involved in this process.
That's my other question.
And Bothell,
Yeah.
so that the continuity of care and the organization it's all one, right? Everyone's paying in the same system, receiving the same level of care and service. That's the big long-term goal.
Right, so that was my other question, is what other departments or districts you think might? Or you just don't know, since
I
it's
need to be really
with
careful.
Bothell and Woodinville.
I need to be really careful, about, hypothesizing or hoping or whatever. I would, since Josh, mentioned it, South Waffle also has the same exact problem that South Kenmore has. Which is getting across the cut and into serving that area is very difficult. So I think there's opportunities for the future, but I don't want to, I'm focusing on this RFA right now.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens in the future.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Do we have any more questions online? Is there anyone who hasn't signed up that would like to make a public comment? All right, well, let's go back to anyone that would like to come back up and take another 3 minutes and continue the conversation.
I want to say I appreciate what just happened here.
Yeah,
You had a citizen come up there, actually had a dialogue with you.
Yeah.
Rather than making citizen comments. That's really what I envisioned this meeting to be about. And for example,
excuse me, you want to come up? In all fairness, you took a lot of your time to state your position, not to have a dialogue. So just to be clear.
well, right, but the
So-
promise that they made, the boards made to the citizens and to myself at previous RFA meetings and board meetings was that this would be a dialogue.
Then let's start.
Because the restrictions on a citizen comment are, anyway, so, first of all, clearly there's lots of firefighters here, and clearly the firefighters want to have an RFA. And I don't, in a lot of ways, I don't blame them, because it is a more stable situation where you don't have any risk of someone going away from the contract. I can tell you though, the city of Shoreline and the city of Kenmore both contract with the King County Sheriff's Office or Police Services under a contract for service model. King County has 16 cities and Indian tribes and Sound Transit that they serve under the contract for services model. The beauty of that model is if Kenmore Lake Forest Park wants to have more service, if they want to build a station up in the Arrowhead area, they can pay for that. But if you're part of an RFA, how come Richmond Beach has a few more calls for service, so they're likely to get a station first other than Kenmore? The other thing is I'd like you to address is currently the North Shore area, Kenmore and Lake Forest Park, have a 13% higher AV, and they would be subsidizing Shoreline significantly in the amount of revenue that goes from us to them. One of the reasons that I chaired the committee to form the city of Kenmore is because when King County was our service provider, a third of the taxes from Kenmore went down to the south end and Skyway and Bury and East Hill of Kent, because that's where their problems were. A contract for service makes sure that the service you buy, you pay for a fair price, you're reimbursed, but we get back exactly what we asked for. And each community is a little bit different. And the other thing is, I would go to the city managers of Shoreline and Kenmore and ask them if they would like to have the King County Sheriff's Office just give them whatever service they wanted, like it used to be when the Sheriff's Office provided on a global scale. So how do you address those issues of Lake Forest Park and Kenmore subsidizing Shoreline, and then the ability of this community to get the services it wants, as opposed to whatever the regional group says you're going to get?
Well, there's three things there that I'll start with the police. That model is not working. You talk to anybody in Shoreline. I don't know about Kenmore, but it's not working. They're not getting the resources. They're not getting the police officer they want. I've worked with directly with the Shoreline police chief, and she was frustrated beyond all belief, dropping expletives whenever, one-on-one.
Right, and that's
And so-
every police department in the entire region is struggling to recruit people.
Right.
Go
So
ahead, yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is that is not a good example of trying to compare what is happening there and a good model for us moving into the future. As far as the Richmond Beach versus the Kenmore situation, if we were an RFA, the entire board would direct me as to where the resources needed to be applied. They would have equal say and equal representation about either building one or the other or both, depending. Now, what I will say is that the likelihood of a Richmond Beach station is probably better than a South Kenmore right now, only because we have impact fees that can help pay for it, because it is a product of new development. That is not to say that we can't do something in South Kenmore, but that is the benefit of having an RFA and equal representation and being able to apply all of the combined resources to where it's needed the most.
Right, and the impact fee, to be clear, the impact fee is something the city imposed, not the fire district.
Correct.
Right.
Well,
So Kenmore Lake Forest Park could impose.
well, there's a couple of issues there, and that is something that I presented because of what I saw as the growth that was coming to Shoreline. Lake Forest Park does not have a lot of growth. Kenmore's starting to see some of that growth. We've explored the possibility of doing an impact fee, but it wouldn't be generating the same amount because there's differences in growth.
Right, and I compliment you on the impact fee, getting the city to do that, but I just want to be
It's a lot of
clear,
effort,
it's
but-
a city's decision to do.
Hindsight 2020, really good. As far as the subsidizing, this is one of those things that you and I have talked about that we're in disagreement on. I do have a graph I can show you. Okay, so the reason why there's a difference between Shoreline and North Shore from a financial standpoint is Shoreline has a lot of diversified revenues. We have a lot of other contracts, we have a lot of sources of revenue, and what you can see here, this blue line here is the Shoreline AV. The blue line up there is our contribution to expenses for operating expenses. The yellow and the orange are North Shore. See how close these are? And how much difference there is between the Shoreline and the expenses? And that's because of those other revenue sources that are being generated. That upper left there, we contribute 76.5% more towards operational expenses than North Shore. Yet we have 61.5% higher staffing. So I would argue that Shoreline is actually subsidizing Lake Forest Park and Kenmore, not the other way around.
You mean in the RFA? Because, or today?
That's even today, that's even today. Because this is different AVs, different, it's not homogenized, it's not grouped together. This is an apples to apples comparison. And I've told you this quite a few times. So I don't.
Okay, can you explain to me then, because we've had this discussion and I've never been able to understand, can you explain how the tax rate for all the citizens would go down when there's no cost, there's $200,000 in cost savings in a $14 million budget? A almost $40 million budget. You can only find $200,000 in that much money.
Well, I mentioned it earlier, that one of the reasons is because of the higher contributions right now that have been going on and trying to recover for the reserves and so forth that's in the North Shore Fire Department. Those will continue for the next few years, but then they will go down. And then, in the long term, we would probably, see, I have another graph, we'd probably see equal, no, wrong way. Okay, so this is the overall, this is the equivalent levy rate trend lines, since 2017. And so this is what I'm forecasting right now for, the North Shore Fire Department, and this is Shoreline. And you can see that they're close, I mean, but it's actually 18, the Shoreline Fire Department is dropping at an 18% faster equivalent levy rate. And I attribute that to the growth, I attribute that to, some of the diversified revenue streams that we have. But that's the trend. Now, that's not to say that once we catch up in North Shore with the capital, with the reserves and the capital, that this line won't drop back down, but we're out here before we see that again, because we are trying to catch up on a lot of things right now. And this was a heavy year. Well, last year and this year were heavy years, and we're gonna see that for the next 2 or 3 years at least.
Yeah, well, the projection, as I recall, when we did the contract for service, that under the contract for service, North Shore in 2024 would be at $1.06. And now they're at $1.13 on your original projections for when you applied for the contract for service.
You mean when we did the ILA in 2022?
Yeah, that's just 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, we had a 10% CPI and a 15% increase in costs. Nobody forecasted that. We forecasted 3.5%.
We came in with
inflation.
We came in with 100% funded reserves.
No, you didn't. You and I've talked about this before. You didn't.
Do you have another question or two, or?
Well, those are the main ones.
Okay.
I will just make one other comment, and this has to do with a firefighter-centric operation. On the boards of Shoreline and North Shore, and this is no secret, you have 3 active IA firefighters that are currently employed. You have 2 that are Shoreline retired firefighters or volunteer firefighters, and you have 2 wives of retired Shoreline fire chiefs. And I would just submit that, I'm not criticizing them and not having what they think the best interest is, but I think the perspective that they have coming from the fire service, it is clouding their ability to see how what they're doing impacts the individual citizens out there. It's just a real challenge, and I also say, you got a lot of firefighters here, and how many citizens did you get?
So just if you want to know, we have 58 attendees today online and in person, and 35 members of the public.
Yeah, so, I understand what you're saying from the optics, but what I can absolutely guarantee you is that I've never felt from any of the commissioners that they were ever, biased one way or another. And in fact, if there was ever a situation where there was a conflict of interest, they'd recuse themselves from the vote. I believe that we have good.
And they're required by law to do that. And
hold on, we have good diversity on our board. I think they do a great job, and they're passionate about the service. And that's typically how boards get populated. I actually like the diversity of our boards, and that maybe there's some firefighters and so forth on there, but they all come with different perspectives, and they hold me accountable because they know I can't just schmooze them because they know the business. And so I actually look at that as a positive thing.
Yeah, I think having firefighters on the board is a positive. I don't disagree with that. Every board I served on, well, as a fire commissioner, we had a firefighter on there. So
all right,
anyway, that's
it. Thank you. Okay, one last time, do we have any online questions? Anyone else in the room would like to make a public? Oh, wait, we have one.
Who decides who gets on the board?
The voters from Lake Forest Park and Kenmore would populate the North Shore. Oh, looking at you again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't do this a lot. Both boards would continue to elect their own commissioners. And so the North Shore Fire District, comprising Lake Forest Park and Kenmore, would populate 5 members on the governing board of the RFA, and the city of Shoreline geographically would populate the other 5. So it's equal representation from the fire districts. Lake Forest Park and Kenmore of those five, it could be divided up however, the voters want.
Thank you. One last call. We will have someone wants to come up and make one final comment.
First off, I forgot to thank all you guys for your services. That's really great. I was just looking at those levy rates. Once this passes, the Regional Fire Authority, does that mean Shoreline, Lake Forest Park and Kenmore, that would be, have the same levy rate? Or is it still separate?
Yes, in fact, so. Whoop. Sorry, I went too fast. So, this is a forecast with some assumptions about AV growth and budget growth. We are going to be setting the fire tax levy at 70 cents. And the fire benefit charge would be set to whatever is necessary to balance the budget. But it would be at 70 cents. And that's reflective of what just got passed in Lake Forest Park and Kenmore, of resetting the levy rate for next year. I won't get into the reasons why. There was a good reason why we needed to do that. And unfortunately, we have the ballot measure that just passed and another one potentially in February. But the reason for it was to make sure that we were prepared either way for 2025, and we needed that. So it was already set at 70 cents, and we're going to continue. The plan at this point is to continue with that levy rate for the RFA.
Okay, and in layman's term, so once this RFA gets approved, so we're just like a majority that votes, so it's not individual locations.
Individual.
Like say, Lake Forest Park and Kenmore, but they voted no and Shoreline voted.
No,
so
it's everybody.
Okay.
Going to be voting, and
Okay.
so because this affects everybody.
Okay.
And especially since, and again, just to reiterate what I already spoke about, the fire benefit charge, it takes a super majority. And because we're starting fresh, and the fire benefit charge the first time that it's presented needs a super majority to pass.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah. Any other questions online? Does anyone else have any that hasn't had a chance to make a comment tonight, want to come up and speak? All right, thank you, everybody, for your participation. I'll turn the meeting back over to the chair.
I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of the evening tonight, to come and share your thoughts and comments with us. It is appreciated. I want you to know that you've all been heard. I hope you have a safe drive home.
Please take some cookies and coffee on your way.
Thank you.